Shalom. First off, I want to give all praise, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Salutations to the hopeful elect that are scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. And to all my brothers out here preaching this truth to you, I say Shalom. This is a Matazar from the Chicago camp, coming back at you again with another lesson entitled East St. Louis History. So those who follow me on this channel. I do quite a bit of traveling, so whenever I go somewhere, I like to look at the backdrop, okay, of where I'm at and see the effect that Esau Edom has had in that area, okay. And my travels took me to East St. Louis, okay. I've been there before. It's fucked up. It's a very repressed and depressed uh, area, okay. Um, be prepared to change out your lower ball joints out there, okay? There's a lot of potholes. Anyways, so while I was there, I said, well, let me look into the history of this East St. Louis, all right? And I found out about the St. Louis Massacre of 1917, and there was a little short that was done on it, okay? It says the St. Louis Massacre of 1917, history they don't want you, or they want you to forget. Unlock your mind, okay? So I watched that little short, and as always, Esau lies about the casualty rate, okay? So Esau saying it's somewhere between, 39? Yep, 39 to 150 uh, so-called black people who were massacred. Okay, um, when in fact the numbers are higher. Okay, so it says in 1917 East St. Louis massacre. Okay, the 1917 East St. Louis massacre, also known as the East St. Louis race riot. There was no race riot. Okay, these were so-called blacks coming up from the South to work, okay, because they were baited into coming up there to work because the Edomites were striking. Okay, so the Edomites were striking. They got together and collectively stopped working, okay, to run the company into the ground in order to get their demands made. So Esau, owning the company, okay, basically invited or offering Jake jobs to come up here and do the job because the Edomites was sitting down and saying, no, if they don't meet our demands, we ain't gonna work. And Jake came up there just basically seeking employment. All right, and that led to massacres. All right, so the 1917 East St. Louis massacre, also known as the East St. Louis race riot. This devil always changes verbiage. Okay, when you think about a race riot, you're thinking about something different than a massacre. Okay, it says it's one of the most violent episodes of racial and labor-related conflict in U.S. history, occurring between May and July of 1917. It resulted in the deaths of at least 39 to 150 black residents and left over 6,000 homeless. All right, 39 and 150 ain't nowhere near each other. Okay, and so in previous lessons I've done on some of these massacres that have happened here in the United States, there's always this ridiculous disparity in the numbers where Esau claims the lowest end of the number, all right, and then the witnesses account is always higher than the high end of the number. Context, it says the Great Migration and Labor Conflict. The massacre was rooted in the Great Migration as thousands of African Americans fled the Jim Crow South for industrial jobs in northern cities like East St. Louis. Strike breaking in 1916 and early 1917, white workers at companies like the Aluminum Ore Company and local meat packing plants went on strike. Corporate tactics to break these strikes. It says companies recruited black workers from the South as strike breakers, intentionally fueling racial resentment to weaken the union. Okay, to weaken the union's efforts. So they baited Jake to come up there and take the Edomites' jobs. Okay, who was trying to uh, force the job owners, all right, to either pay them a higher rate or rate of pay or whatever their demands were. Esau sit down on you. Okay. So I've worked around them for many years, and I'm gonna tell you right now, they think adversely at all times. Okay, they always they always are thinking they always thinking sideways. Whatever you say, their mind makes them go sideways. Well, what if I do this? What if I do that? All right, so they always on some bullshit. This is Psalms 140:4. It says, "Keep me, O Yahweh, from the hands of the wicked, and preserve me from the violent man who have purpose to overthrow my goings." Okay, and that's exactly what Esau Edom is always going to do in relationship to us because he has a perpetual hatred for us. This is Zechariah 11:5. It says, "Whose possessors slay them and hold themselves not guilty. And they that sell them say, Blessed be Yahweh, for I am rich, and their own shepherds pity them not." Okay, so if you think that you're not a possession in this in this kingdom, all right, all you have to do is look at a couple of YouTube shorts. All right, you got these Moors, right? All right, they got the Moorish science, and you have um, they think that they're sovereign in another man's kingdom. All right, so you'll have a police officer with his size 12 boot on Jake's face. He said, "I'm sovereign. I'm sovereign." Okay, and the officer boot is smashing into this man's face. Okay, he's literally standing on the man's face. Okay, so if you think that you're not possessed, okay, by these possessors, you are mistaken. A labor strike is a collective organized work stoppage caused by the mass refusal of employees to work, usually in response to grievances or to force an employer to meet demands. It's a negotiation tactic used to secure better wages, benefits, improve working conditions, or to protest unfair labor practices. All right. You see, they just horrible all the way around. Okay. The company owners are horrible. The workers are horrible. All of the Edomites are adverse. Okay. They don't even pay you on time. It's Deuteronomy 24:14. You listen, they supposed to pay you every day. You're supposed to get paid before the sun goes down. It says, "Thou shalt not oppress a hired servant that is poor and needy, whether he be of thy brethren or of thy strangers that are in thy land within thy gates. At his day thou shalt give him his hire, neither shall the sun go down upon it, for he is poor, and setteth his heart upon it, lest he cry against thee unto Yahweh, and it be sent unto thee." You see, you ain't supposed to keep the wages and pay people every 2 weeks. Okay, you ain't supposed to keep people wages and pay them once a month. All right, this is Numbers 35 and 33. All right, so this massacre, it led to more than 150 um, Jakes being murdered. Okay, all because they was trying to work. It says, "So ye shall not pollute the land wherein ye are, for blood it defileth the land, and the land cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of him that shed it." Okay, so what Esau was doing, all right, here in St. Louis, St. Louis was like the gateway, all right, for the Western migration. All right. So as people was coming up from the south and migrating west, St. Louis was a big stop. All right, and St. Louis, and then St. Louis, they got rid of the Northern Kingdom, the Indians. All right, they call Indians bywords. Those are bywords. So you had the Indian removal act, okay, and getting Gad, all right, and Reuben up out of the land, okay. So once they got the Northern Kingdom up out of the land, then here come the Southern Kingdom, okay, the so-called uh, African American slaves. And then after slavery was abolished, you had, the Reconstruction period, okay, where a lot of massacres happened because Jake was empowered to vote. All right. So, in closing, this is Psalms 58 and 10. It says, "The righteous shall rejoice when he seeth the vengeance. He shall wash his feet in the blood of the wicked, so that a man may say, Verily, there is a reward for the righteous. It says, Verily, he is a power that judgeth in the earth." Okay, and that's all about what? Payback. Okay. All right. So hey, like I said, whenever I'm traveling, I like to kind of maybe get a backdrop or history of where I'm at. All right, because these are the same spirits that's still in these places. All right. So um, I pray that this lesson has been edifying. Until the next one, hey, Shalom.